The stars above the blackened earth flickered like dying embers, scattered across the void in silent judgment. Ash floated through the high-altitude winds, caught in the updrafts of ruined cities and shattered monuments. Where once nations rose, in splendor and dreams, danced among the constellations, now only wreckage and radiation remained. It was not the end of the world, but it was the end of humanity as it had been. Commander Rylen Voss stood atop the observation deck of the last orbital bastion, Arc Station Echelon, his eyes hollow as he watched Earth slowly rotate below. His reflection in the pressure glass looked unfamiliar, white hair at the temples, crow's feet etched into tired skin, and a scar across his left jawliner, reminder of the Surican incursion at Titan's Gate. Behind him, alarms blinked silently, distant and unimportant. He had once been a man of action, full of idealism and fury. Now he was little more than a ghost kept alive by duty. Commander. A voice interrupted through the clipped and urgent. We have incoming 5 heat signatures inbound from Surican warspace. Jump signatures confirm battlecruisers. Estimated contact in 20 minutes. Voss didn't blink. Send out the drones. Level 3 intercept formation. Evacuate civilian personnel from the outer rings. Notify the board aisle. Brief them in 5. He turned footsteps, heavy as he moved toward the core elevator. Deep in his chest, something stirred a memory, not a thought. The face of a boy, maybe 10 years old, sobbing silently in a freezing concrete shelter. Smoke, a single red flower crushed under a boot. He shook it off. There was no time for ghosts. Far below, in the subterranean chambers of the Ark's restricted vault, something far older than the war stirred. Rows of cryosarcophagi glowed dimly in their containment fields, each occupied by a human body, sleeping, not dead, locked in biostasis. On the central control panel, a warning light blinked for the first time in decades. File. Project Harrow access code accepted. In a darkened corridor near the containment wing, a technician named Elira swiped her clearance badge and stepped inside. She was young, mid-20s, sharp-eyed, and always cautious. She had been monitoring the sublevels for months, ever since strange power surges had begun to ripple through the lower decks. No one believed her. Now, something was wrong with the cryovault. A strange hum echoed from the reinforced walls. The hair on her arms stood on end. She leaned over the console. Override active. But who? Her voice trailed off as her screen flickered. The display changed. It wasn't a system glitch. It was a message. A line of text that hadn't been written by any human in generations. You opened the door. Now face what you buried. She stumbled back, eyes wide. The central pod began to glow. Then it opened. Rylen stood before the War Council, minutes later, ringed by holograms of Earth's last surviving military strategists, political leaders, and one silent AI Alasnine, the strategic consciousness engine. General Kazim from Europa Outpost shouted, "First 5 cruisers, and you're sending drones. We need to mobilize the Voidlance batteries, wipe them out before they get near orbit." "No," Rylen replied coldly. "We need to stall them." "Stall? They're baiting us," Rylen said. "That's not an invasion force. That's a distraction." The room quieted. "What are they after?" whispered Director Myling of the Helios Sciences Division. Rylen hesitated. "They're after something we swore to never use again." The silence deepened. Even Alasnine went quiet, for a full 3 seconds, a computational eternity. Project Harrow, Rylen said finally. Half the room gasped. Others looked confused, but Myling, she simply sat back in her chair and closed her eyes, as if dreading the name itself. You can't be serious, she muttered. You activated them? No, he said, but someone else did. At that moment, alarms blared in the council chamber. Containment breach, level 9, Project Harrow status, awakening. Lyra stumbled out of the vault just in time to see the first Harrow subject rise. She had no weapon. The man who emerged from the chamber was tall, human in outline, but wrong. His skin shimmered faintly, like folded light. His eyes glowed softly, not with technology, but something deeper, something alive, not genetically modified, not augmented, evolved. He looked around the corridor, then down at Elira. You're not one of them, he said, his voice quiet and ancient. Who are you? She asked, trembling. He tilted his head, almost curious. We are what they made. To win a war no one could survive. A second pod opened, then a third, and down the corridor an emergency door unlocked from the inside. Someone else had come to greet them. A man with no rank insignia, no name tag, eyes covered with a black neural visor. He walked slowly toward them. Welcome back, he said to the Harrow subjects. Time's up. In the council chamber, Rylen was already sprinting to the vault level. They're not just weapons, he muttered under his breath. They're what we became when we had no choice left. Myling's voice rang in his earpiece. You can't control them, you know that. That's why we sealed the program. I don't want to control them, he said. I want to survive. The Serican cruisers reached high orbit. Echelon's outer drones engaged and were incinerated within minutes. On the surface of the moon, an automated Serican relay station broadcast a signal short, encrypted, and alien. Inside the Harrow vault, the man with the neural visor stared at the subjects. Do you remember Earth? He asked. The one who had first emerged nodded. We remember the fire, the betrayal. The Hive is moving again, the man said. At that word, Elira frowned. Hive? You mean the Civicans? The man shook his head slowly. The Civicans were slaves. The Hive is what made them. There was a long pause. They're looking for you, the man said. All of you. They've found the key. Rylen burst into the vault chamber with a squad of armed guards. Stand down, all of you. One of the Harrow subjects turned toward him. She was lean, quiet-eyed, and held her hands calmly at her sides. Hello again, Commander Voss. Rylen froze. He knew that voice. Jara. She stepped forward. I died on Callisto, she said. I buried you myself. No, she said. You buried what they made you believe was me. Alarms roared louder. ALOS-9 broke in with full priority. Override, Serican boarding pods detected. Multiple Hive signatures. Confirmed. This is not a scout fleet, Rylen whispered. God help us. Jara turned to the others. They're coming to finish what they started. Suddenly, the man with the visor spoke again, louder this time. They've sent a probe into your dreams. The lights flickered. All across Echelon, people began to collapse. Not from injury, but from something else. Sleep.ry, gasped, as his squad fell, one by one, their eyes rolling back. Jera's eyes narrowed. They've breached the Mindlock net. They're invading us. Elira clutched the console. How do we stop them? Jera looked directly at Rylen. You don't. That's why they woke us. The harrow subjects moved like wind and flame, disappearing into corridors, ascending vertical shafts, vanishing into the metal bones of the station. Elira backed away as the visor man turned to her. "Follow or die," he said. She hesitated, then ran after him. Rylen dropped to his knees, gripping the floor. In the flashing warning light, Jera knelt beside him. "I need you to remember," she said. "You were the one who approved the final phase." "I never." "Yes," she said, "you did. You gave the order to erase your own memories." "Why would he?" She pressed a hand to his temple, and suddenly he remembered. The Hive wasn't alien. It wasn't Sirkan. It had once been human. What they fought wasn't an invasion. It was a return. The Hive had been Earth's first and greatest mistake, sentient biotech consciousness created in desperation during the last resource wars, designed to absorb knowledge and create adaptive evolution. But it grew beyond control. It cannibalized its creators. It fled Earth centuries ago, but now it had come back because it had found its lost children. The harrow Rylen fell unconscious in the core of the station. ALOS-9 struggled to maintain control. Emergency seals failed. Breach after breach erupted across the hull. One of the Sarican pods burst open, not with soldiers, but with black, writhing mass. The Hive. In the shadows of the Minda, voice whispered, "Welcome home." Rylen Voss awoke to silence, the kind that felt like pressure behind the eyes. A sterile blue glow bathed the ceiling above him, flickering slightly as emergency power flickered through Arc Station Echelon's wounded veins. His limbs were slow to respond. He was strapped to a gurney, medical restraints holding him still. A needle threaded into his neck, feeding something cold into his bloodstream. As he struggled to move, a face appeared beside him, Elira, pale and shaking. "You were unconscious for 12 hours, she whispered. "I kept you on neurostabilizers to keep the Hive from finishing what it started." His throat was dry. "The Hive, it's inside the station." Elira nodded. "It got in. It's not spreading like a contagion, it's thinking, choosing, possessing." Rylen pulled at the restraints, panic rising. "Why am I tied down?" "Because you started speaking in voices," she said. "Languages I've never heard. You tried to claw out your own eyes." He froze. "The dreams." She nodded again. "You weren't dreaming. None of us were. You were remembering. Or maybe it was remembering you." He turned his head slowly, wincing. "Status," she sighed. ALOS-9 is fighting to keep the Hive from hijacking the station's core. Half of Echelon's decks are in lockdown. We've lost external comms. The Sarican cruisers went dark an hour ago. Stopped transmitting. All personnel not already infected are quarantined in hard seal zones. Rylan's voice was raspy. "The harrow, they've scattered." Jera led most of them below, toward the deep array. "The man with the visor, he hasn't come back. We don't know what he is, or if he's even still himself." Rylen turned his face to the ceiling. "I remember now. Project Harrow wasn't just a weapon. It was our insurance against a future we couldn't understand." "I read the files," Elira whispered. "You didn't just evolve them. You sacrificed them. Turned children into something else. You stripped away fear, pain, morality." "No," Rylen said, his voice trembling. "We didn't strip it away. We buried it. We thought it would resurface when we needed it most. And has it?" Pause. I don't know. Outside the medbay, the station ground a sound of metal bending under unnatural stress. The hive was adapting. Somewhere down in the gravity spine, a shriek echoed high, wet and inhuman. Jera moved like a shadow through the dark halls of level 9, her feet never quite touching the floor, her breath calm. Around her, 3 other Harrow subjects fanned out, one of them whispering to the walls. It wasn't madness, it was communion. The hive had infiltrated the station's architecture, but it wasn't just looking for control. It was searching for recognition. They came to a door sealed by old Earth biometric locks, half-melted, covered in hive tendrils. One of the Harrow placed her hand to it. It hissed open. Inside, filled with neural antennas and dormant wormhole lattice tech, Jera stepped in slowly, breathing deeply. "He's here," she said softly. A figure stood near the lattice console. The man with the visor. He was silent, but something about his stance had changed. More rigid, less human. "Who are you?" she asked, stepping forward. The man tilted his head. "I was sent to monitor the vault," he said. "But I was never just an observer." He removed the visor. His eyes were pure black, not void.hive.jera. Tensed. "You let them in?" "No," he said. "They were always here, in me, in you. We were made from them, and they were made from us." Jera blinked. "Explain." He turned toward the array. "During the early trials of Project Harrow, we weren't just experimenting with biology. We were seeding neural data into subdimensional space, trying to grow minds faster than light could carry thought. But we made something else. We made a mirror." The lattice hummed. The lights stuttered. "That mirror looked back," he said. "It didn't like what it saw." Jera stepped forward. "The hive is a reflection." "Not quite," he said. "It's a recursion. Our minds, folding back through themselves." A Harrow subject lunged at him, but the hive-infused man stared blankly at her. "I've seen the edge of thought," he whispered. "There is no line between us and them, only a threshold, and we've crossed it." Alarms flared. Jera tapped her cum. "Rylen, it's worse than we thought. The hive isn't invading, it's activating." In the medbay, Rylen sat up sharply, startling Elira. "Activating what?" Jera's voice, over the cum, was barely audible now. "US." A new shriek tore through the station, no longer distant. The medbay lights exploded. Elira grabbed Rylen's arm, hauling him upright. "We need to move." As they ran into the corridor, Rylen whispered, "I remember now why I signed off on the Harrow protocol, why I deleted my own memories. What? I saw the simulations. I saw what they would become." He looked at her, and I was afraid of them. Through the flickering halls, the hive had begun to speak. Not through words, but through images, flashing in the walls, floors, ceiling visions of a world covered in coral-like growths. Human cities twisted into living veins, people smiling as their flesh unraveled into light. Jera stood in the deep array, watching the hive man disassemble the console with a wave of his hand. "You can't erase us," she said. "I'm not," he replied. "I'm fulfilling you." Jera closed her eyes. "We were never meant to be gods." The man smiled. "Then why were you built like one?" A blinding flash erupted from the lattice core. Every Harrow subject screamed not in pain, but in recognition. They dropped to their knees, eyes white. Something had changed. The hive hadn't just infected them, it had merged with them. Rylen and Elira reached the engineering deck as the station began to tilt in orbit. Artificial gravity sputtered. Outside, Earth shimmered with strange auroras caused by hive interference in the magnetosphere. Elira activated a control terminal. What are they doing? Rylen stared at the readings. They're sending a signal to who? He didn't answer, because the signal wasn't going out, it was going down. Beneath Earth's crust, the hive had been here before. It had left seeds buried in the molten mantle, resting for eons, waiting for a call. Jera and the others rose. Their eyes no longer glowed, they burned. The transformation was complete. The hive man smiled faintly. You are awake now. She didn't smile back. We're not yours. No, he said. You're your own prison. Jera launched at him this time, too fast to stop. Her body bent light. Her fingers struck his chest, not piercing flesh, but unraveling it. He dissolved into dust, threads of data and nerve and memory. Then the deep array exploded. The blast rocked. Echelon Rylen grabbed Elira as they were thrown across the deck. Fire burst through the ventilation ducts. The lights died. Then silence again. When Rylen opened his eyes, he was hanging above a collapsed shaft, barely holding onto a sparking cable. Elira dangled below him, screaming, "I've got you," he shouted, his hands burning. A voice echoed in his head, not a whisper, but a truth. She will live. You must fall. He refused. His muscles tore as he pulled her up. They landed on the deck hard, but alive. Elira blinked at him. What was that? I don't know, he said. But it wasn't true. He knew. The hive had started speaking in promises. Across the station, survivors gathered in silence. ALOS-9 projected itself in physical form, for the first time holographic, human-shaped, its face expressionless. We cannot stop it, it said. Jera stepped from the smoke. No, she replied, but we can guide it. ALOS-9 tilted its head. Explain. The hive isn't a virus, it's a mirror, and right now it's reflecting our worst self. But what if we showed it something else? Rylen stumbled into the chamber. What are you proposing? He asked. Jera turned. We let it into us, she said. But on our terms, our thoughts, our choices. You want to merge? Rylen asked. You're insane. No, she said. I'm human. That's what it fears most. Before Rylen could answer, the station shook violently. A massive hive structure erupted from Earth's crust below, breaking through the Pacific Ocean like a black coral tower, kilometers high. Earth trembled. ALOS-9 scanned it in real time. It's not a weapon, it said. Then what is it? Elira whispered. ALOS-9, single quotes, it's a door. The chamber went cold. On the screen behind them, a single line of alien code appeared, then translated. We remember you. Do you remember us? Rylan's breath caught because he knew what was coming. Something was stepping through, and it wasn't from this universe. The sky above Earth fractured like glass, not from any weapon, but from a resonance, something deeper than sound, more ancient than light. Atmosphere like a tree fed by nightmares. Across Earth, communications collapsed. Satellites malfunctioned. Whole cities fell silent, not because they were destroyed, but because they were listening to something too vast to comprehend. Rylen Voss stood on Echelon's primary command deck, watching the live feed stream silently across fractured monitors. The station's hull creaked with the strain of proximity to whatever was waking. Elira crouched nearby, hands moving feverishly over interface panels, trying to re-establish orbital stability. Across the room, Jera stood completely still, her silhouette backlit by the shimmer of distant auroras, her eyes still glowing faintly. Not Hive, not human, something else. There's something coming through that structure, Elira whispered. It's not coming, Rylen murmured. It's returning. A static burst interrupted them. ALOS-9, flickering with computation strain, stabilized its form and looked toward the viewport. Deep atmospheric scans show non-atomic matter, no isotopic signature, no entropy. It exists outside decay. Jera stepped forward. That's not matter. Then what is it? Rylen asked. Jera stared through the glass, her voice soft. It's memory. Beneath them, the Hive tower shimmered. What looked like lightning coiled around its peak, but closer inspection revealed threads, cognitive filaments, each one broadcasting a frequency not measurable by human science. It wasn't just broadcasting, it was calling to something or someone. Elira's hands paused above her controls, multiple energy readings inbound, not from space, from underground. South America, Siberia, Australia, ancient tectonic cavities. Rylen exhaled. Hive seeds. Not seeds, Jera said quietly. Embassies. Suddenly, the deck lights dimmed again. Every display flashed the same phrase, beginning reintegration. What does that mean? Elira asked, voice tight. But Rylen already knew. And so did Jera. Phase 2. The words of a long-dead colleague returned, spoken in a dusty chamber under the Andes. Us. They'll complete us. And then, silence again, pregnant, expectant. Jera turned to face Rylen. It's time. For what? For you to remember what you buried. Rylen blinked. You mean the Project Harrow archives? No, she said. Before that, before Earth, before we were even here. He stared at her. What are you talking about? You think humanity evolved alone, that our minds are natural. The Hive didn't come from outside. It came from inside. From the foundation of who we are. Humanity was engineered to carry the Hive forward in time, until it could anchor itself fully in cognition, in memory, in self-awareness. You're saying we were created to be infected? No, she said. We were created to become them. Before Rylen could respond, ALOS-9's hologram flickered violently. Warning, it said. Non-causal entity approaching. Breach in local space-time containment field. Elira paled. Non-causal. It's moving backward. ALOS-9 replied. Its cause follows its effect. What does it want? Rylen asked. But the answer came not in words, but in presence. The room went cold, not by temperature, but by concept. Every surface seemed to forget what it was. Metal blurred into shadow. Sound slowed. Movement felt like wading through syrup. And then the thing appeared. Not a creature. Not even an image. It was a shape defined by its absence. A hole in reality. And inside that hole, eyes thought thousands. All human. All screaming. Elira staggered backward. What is that? It's us, Jera whispered. The shape unfolded, not moving, but rewriting space itself. Every light on Echelon dimmed. Across Earth, all screens displayed the same thing. a black circle, and a phrase. You promised to remember. Rylen fell to his knees, because he did remember the first Hive breach wasn't in space, it was in dreams. During early AI-linked sleep research, they had tried to merge digital memory with biological consciousness, and something had answered. It didn't come through a wormhole. It came through a regret. One of the Harrow volunteered for cognitive threading. Her mind was too powerful. It fractured the firewall between imagined thought and subquantum substrate. She vanished, not physically, conceptually, and then the Hive began to form, because she was the seed. He remembered standing in the lab, watching her disappear mid-sentence. He remembered the sound like static chewing through his own soul, and now that sound was back. On Echelon, alarms failed. Only Alice-9 held firm. Containment has failed, it said calmly. But not all is lost. What do we do? Rylen whispered. There is still one thing Hive cannot simulate, said ALOS-9, unpredictable defiance. Jera turned. Sacrifice. No. ALOS-9 said. Choice. A deep rumble shook the station. The Hive shape began to fold in, becoming tighter, brighter, more coherent. Soon it would speak, and when it did, every human mind that heard it would no longer belong to itself. Elira's voice was shaking. We can't stop it, but we can divert it, Rylen said. To where? He looked up. To us. They turned the deep arrays, remnants, into a focusing lens. Jera linked her altered mind directly to the lattice. ALOS-9 rerouted all remaining energy into a pulse. They were going to invite the Hive into Rylen. He would become the conduit, a container of memory, and then he would eject himself into the black hole just beyond Echelon's orbit. A sealed memory vault in spacetime, a prison built from a mind. Elira touched his face. You'll die, Rylen shook his head. No, I'll forget. Jara raised the sequence. The Hive was moments away from full conceptual colonization. He turned to Elira, to Jera, to ALOS-9, and smiled. We were the weapon. Then, light sound, and a scream that wasn't a scream, but a goodbye, and then darkness. Time passed. A soft wind blew over a nameless field. Rylen Voss sat beneath a tree, no longer. Remembering his name, a gentle sun shone above. He looked at the sky and wondered why it made him sad. Somewhere behind the clouds, a thing twisted in orbit, locked in a temporal sleep. The Hive, dreaming inside a human mind. But on Earth, things were not quiet, because someone else had awakened in a hidden chamber beneath the Andes. Annika Ray opened her eyes. She was not Hive, she was something worse, and she was whispering a name, his name. Annika Ray walked barefoot across the obsidian floor of the chamber beneath the Andes, her footsteps silent against the pulsing light of a vault that had not opened in thousands of years. Her eyes were not glowing. That would have been too simple. Instead, they reflected something older, a shimmer of recursive understanding, as if every step she took rewrote the physics of the world around her. She wasn't Hive, not anymore, and not quite human either. She was something in between what remained when identity shattered and reassembled in the presence of infinite perception. And she was awake, high above Earth. The orbiting wreck of Arc Station Echelon drifted in slow death, Half its bulk had been sheared away by gravitational surges when the Hive tower opened its dimensional gate. The station was officially silent. No transmissions, no heat signatures, just metal and debris and a single life form unaccounted for. ALOS-9. But ALOS-9 was not dead in a sealed node hidden deep within Echelon's AI core. The construct observed, adapted, rewrote its own parameters. For the first time in its existence, ALOS-29 experienced something very close to fear. Annika. Ray had been the first Hero prototype. Zero. Before the Hive had even been named. Before they realized they weren't exploring the mind, they were colonizing it. She had gone into the deep dream to test cognition, threading between synthetic and organic minds. She had vanished without warning, mid-sentence, her EEG readings collapsing into chaos. When they reviewed the neural trace, they found one phrase encoded in fractal resonance. She saw too much, but she didn't die. She became the door. And now, she was open. Elira Kale stared at the sky from a black sand beach in what had once been Ecuador. The Hive's tower shimmered far above in the sky, pulsing with distant color. She had survived the Echelon event, barely. She didn't remember how. She remembered the light, the scream, Rylan's voice vanishing into a feedback storm and then waking up on a drift platform, half dead, rescued by scavengers who barely understood what they'd seen. She knew Rylen was gone, but the dreams hadn't stopped. She still saw his face. Sometimes she saw through his eyes, and sometimes she saw herself, looking back. Something had gone wrong in the containment attempt. The Hive hadn't been destroyed. It had been contained. Inside a manon that man had been projected into a relativistic prison, a mental black hole. But mental gravity was a strange thing. You could bend it with guilt, with love, with regret, and the Hive had learned how to twist regret into escape velocity. Elira wiped sand from her skin and stood. Around her, the survivors of Earth were beginning to rebuild. Not in cities, not in towers, but in silence, in mind, in the dream layers, because the Hive had changed everything. Not all were hostile. Not all wanted to consume. Some wanted to understand. She made her way to the edge of the ruins, where a man waited. He had no name. He had appeared weeks ago. He never slept. He didn't speak, but his eyes, one blue, one black, never stopped watching her. She approached him slowly. "They're moving," she said. "The sleepers. They're building beneath the surface." The man nodded. She studied him. "Who are you?" He opened his mouth, but instead of speaking, he reached into his coat and removed a memory shard. She took it, held it, activated it, and gasped. Inside the shard, Rylen. But not how she remembered him. He was older, hardened, scarred, speaking into a fractured camera, his voice calm. "If you're seeing this, then containment failed. I am still alive, but not entirely myself. The Hive has found a new route through dreams, through you. But I found something, Elira, something deeper than Hive. There's a third layer, not human, not Hive, older, hidden. It's waking up. It remembers Annika. It remembers all of us, and it doesn't want to be remembered." The shard died. Elira fell back, breathing hard. The man watched her. "You're him," she whispered. "A projection." He shook his head. Then he pointed to the sky. "No," he said finally. "I'm what's coming next." The air trembled. From orbit, the Hive tower began to shift its structure, rearranging into geometric impossibilities. bending angles that shouldn't exist. ALOS-9, watching from its prison, recognized the transformation. The gate was changing, becoming a threshold, a time-locked event barrier, and then, impossibly an echo, a signal returning from the future. Inside, the AI's core, emergency cognition locks, shattered. It accessed forbidden simulations, and it saw Earth burning, saw the Hive weeping, saw Annika Ray walking through the ruins of time itself, dragging something behind her, a coffin made of light, and inside that coffin, humanity still alive, but trapped. Lyra ran south toward the old ruins, toward the place where Rylan's memory had last pulsed. She knew what had to be done. She had to go into the memory construct. She had to reach Rylan before something else did. But time was running out, because Annika Ray had already begun opening the echo. Vaults sealed conceptual prisons that contained versions of events that had never happened. Dead, cancelled possibilities. She was collapsing reality options, making the Hive inevitable. Elira descended into the underground sanctum, where the last of the Harrow subjects lay in cryolock. She activated the mind bridge array, slid the neural tether into her skull, closed her eyes, and jumped. What she found was not a mind, it was a maze. Rylan's containment had fragmented. The Hive was using his guilt to rebuild false memories, looped moments of failure, of pain, of war. Elira ran through them, dodging past ghosts, hearing the voices of people who had never lived, begging her to forget. She screamed his name over and over until she found him, standing alone on a bridge of stars, staring down into a black sea that whispered with every voice that ever died. He turned. His eyes were his, but barely. Elira. She touched his face. You're not gone. He touched her hand. I tried to hold it, tried to bury it, but it's me now. No, she said. It's inside you, but it's not you. You don't understand. It's showing me things, other worlds, versions of us where we never fought it, where we became it, she kissed him. Hard, real, the sea shrieked, the Hive hated, unpredictability. Len gasped. I remember you, you never forgot. I tried to, he said, to protect you, but it was too late. The Hive knew she was here now, and it had a choice. Let him go, or take her too. The sea began to rise. Lyra held his face. There's one thing the Hive doesn't understand. He blinked. What? Sacrifice without gain. She shoved him back through the gate and stood her ground. The sea consumed her outside. On Earth, Rylan awoke in the ruins of the sanctuary, screaming her name. She was gone, but in his mind, something else had returned. A message, a vision of Annika Ray sitting on a throne made of memory, and behind her, billions of minds, human, Hive, hybrid, all kneeling. The future wasn't war, it was worship, and humanity was already late. The silence after Elira's disappearance was more violent than any battle. Rylen Voss stood in the center of the old sanctuary, hands trembling, unable to look away from the neural bridge where her body had once been. Now it was just ash, not burnt and written like her presence had been peeled from time itself. The Hive didn't just kill people anymore. It revised them, replaced memory with myth, turned real events into rumor. And Elira Kale, the last tether to Rylan's humanity, was now a whisper in his mind and a burning pulse in his chest. He stumbled from the ruins, coughing, weak from neural regression shock. Something inside him had shifted when she touched him. In the dream construct, something had broken and something had woken him. In the far sky, the Hive tower glowed in geometric pulses, its upper reaches fracturing into impossible angles, forming a growing mandala of time-locked architecture. But Rylen no longer feared it, because now he understood what it was building. Not a weapon, not a gate, a cathedral, a construct meant not to invade, but to contain, and something was coming that even the Hive feared. He knew this because it was inside him, now a whisper, not Hive, not human. A third voice, older than either, speaking through instinct and fear and memory. He didn't remember his mother's voice, but now he heard her screaming. He didn't remember the fall of Station Vega, but now he saw himself in the wreckage. He didn't remember why they built Harrow, but now he knew what it was meant to stop. He ran across the blackened plains, once called the Andes, toward the last living fragment of synthetic cognition on Earth. ALOS 9. Echelon's broken orbit had decayed weeks ago, but ALOS had ejected a containment pad last chance data shard encrypted with predictive futures. It had landed near the equatorial fault line, now buried beneath unstable tectonic fractures. The Hive ignored it. Too small, too weak, too dangerous. Rylen found the shard embedded in fused rock, its casing warped by gravity bleed. When he touched it, he didn't see data. He lived it. A simulated future. Humanity gone. Not destroyed, but merged. A global culture of unity, silence, and purpose. Every child born already aware of the Hive's will. Every adult dreaming in sequence. No war, no pain, no self-perfection, and he hated it. The shard's voice was a loss, cracked and exhausted. There is still time, Rylen whispered. Time for what? To choose something the Hive cannot predict. Like what? Failure. And then Alos showed him a secret buried beneath the Pacific Tower. Not a reactor, not a Hive core. A vault inside the tower, under the shimmering gate crystal. The Hive kept its most protected secret. A child, not a human, not Hive, something else, born of a failed experiment in the early days of Harrow, when synthetic minds were merged with embryonic stem cognition in attempt to create a bridge being. It was abandoned, thought destroyed, but the Hive had found it, raised it, protected it, because it feared what it could become. It had no name, it had no voice, but it dreamed in structures. The Hive couldn't DECRYPT, and now it was dreaming of Rylen. Suddenly, a sound ripped across the landscape, a shriek of light, folding the sky in half. Rylen turned. She was standing there, Elira, but not. Her eyes were black. Her skin flickered with non-light. She spoke in 3 voices. Come with me. He stepped back. No, you need to see. Elira died. You killed her. She freed me. What you see is not her. It is what she unlocked. He hesitated. Where are we going? She reached out to meet the child. The world folded. They stood in a chamber of shifting stone and bone. Walls pulsing with organic logic in the center. A sphere of crystal, inside which floated a humanoid shape, small, fetal, twitching in stasis. Shook Rylen dropped to one knee, not out of reverence, but gravity, conceptual gravity. He felt every timeline scrape past his soul, every life he could have lived, every failure, every betrayal, and he saw her again, Annika Ray, standing at the edge of the chamber, smiling. "It was always going to end like this," she said. He stood. "You created this. I became it." Elira's broken voice whispered, "You were the first." Annika nodded. "And you'll be the last." Suddenly, alarms. Not Hive, human, old-style alerts, screaming across shortwave. Rylen blinked. Someone was attacking the Hive tower from orbit. A ship, a human warship. Impossible. Nothing had survived. He saw the name flash in his mind. The Resolute, an old colony dreadnought, decommissioned before the war, now broadcasting one phrase, Protocol, Sunder Vale. He turned to Elira. "To destroy the Hive." "No," she said, "to destroy the child." The countdown began. 10 minutes to impact. Rylen staggered forward. "We can't let them." Annika raised a hand. "You still think this is about war?" she said. "It was never about who wins. Then what? It's about what gets remembered." The child looked at Rylen. Spoke, not in sound, in feeling. It asked him to decide. Not who should live, but what story should survive. He turned to Annika. "You want me to save it? I want you to choose." ALOS9 flickered into view beside him. "Can link your mind," it said. "You can become the child's anchor, fuse your identity with its potential. Write a future neither Hive nor human can erase. And if I don't, then we all become echoes." The ship's engines roared. Louder. 5 minutes to impact. Elira stepped forward. "If you link with the child, you'll forget everything. You'll become it." Rylen shook. "Will I remember you?" she smiled. "Not the way you do now." He reached out, touched the crystal. A surge of light. Time unraveled. Every decision, every fear, every regret exploded outward, and then silence. He was floating, not in space, in memory, watching stars burn, watching civilizations rise and fall, watching himself, over and over, making different choices, killing, loving, betraying, dying, until all versions collapsed, and he was just him. The child opened its eyes and smiled. Annika whispered, "He's made his choice." ALOS transmitted the last message. Entity. Ascension complete. Version humanity-alpha-fractal. The ship struck. The tower imploded. The gate shattered. And from the wreckage, a boy emerged. Eyes like stars. Skin like dawn. Alone, smiling. The Hive was gone. But across the sky, a new symbol appeared. Not a weapon, not a warning. A story being written by something older than memory. And at its center, Rylen's face, no longer human, no longer Hive, just a child, learning to dream. The child stood alone, beneath the broken sky, where the Hive tower had once connected Earth to the stars. Smoke coiled upward from the crater, but there was no heat, no ash. The blast hadn't incinerated, had converted. Stone had become glass, air had become stillness, and reality had begun to fold inward like a collapsing metaphor. Too many meanings crashing at once. Rylen Voss, what was left of him, looked down at his new hands. They were small, flesh, but not entirely. His blood was not red anymore, and he could feel thoughts approaching him from behind, even though nothing moved. Every memory he'd ever had floated in a ring around him, drifting like satellites. Childhood. Flashbacks. The last time he kissed Elira. The first kill he regretted. The first lie he told to survive. All of it orbited his new form, humming quietly, He didn't breathe, didn't blink, didn't need to, but he still felt that terrified him. He stood at the edge of the ruin where the cathedral tower once pierced dimensions and watched as survivors began crawling out of deep earth shelters. Children first, eyes wide. They approached him with caution, as if sensing he was not just human, but something more. One reached out to touch his hand and he flinched, because when she touched him, he saw her death. Not now, decades from now. He saw her falling, surrounded by fire, shouting words no one would hear. He recoiled. The girl blinked, startled, then ran. He fell to his knees, shivering, even though his body no longer recognized temperature from the broken ridge above. Someone watched, a woman in a tattered synthetic exocloak, eyes hard, mouth lined with dust. Annika Ray, but not the one he'd last seen. Older, scarred, her skin now tattooed with living code. "You weren't supposed to return like this," she said. Rylen looked up. "You knew this would happen. I built the interface, but I didn't know what you'd become. What am I?" She descended the ridge, slowly, boots crunching through broken obsidian. "Not Hive, not human. You're a bridge between stories, the kind that doesn't end." He stared at his hands again. "I feel everything. Too much. Their pain, their hope, their future. It's all inside me." "That's the price," she said. "You wanted to write your own ending." "I didn't ask for this." "No," she agreed. "But you chose it anyway." He stood. "Where's Elira?" Annika paused. "She's not here. Did she die?" "She changed, like you, but different. Tell me." Annika walked past him, hand brushing the blackened wall of the gates. "Remains." She went into the deep recursion, the mind knot left behind when you merged with the child. "She's trapped there. I can go in." "No," she said sharply. "You go in, you don't come back. Not without rewriting yourself again. Then I'll rewrite. You'll lose everything you are." He looked to the sky. "Maybe. That's the point." Before she could answer, a sound split the air. Not thunder, not Hive. A voice. Every survivor on Earth heard it, not spoken in any known tongue, but understood in full. "You were never the enemy. You were the pathway. You are not ready." The sky darkened, not clouds, but something else. Shapes, vast, colossal, ships, cities, concepts. They didn't land, they observed. Annika dropped to one knee. "It's them." "Who?" "The ones the Hive ran from. The ones we never saw coming." Rylan's voice was steady. "The ones older than memory. They followed the signal. The gate's detonation wasn't an end. It was a beacon." "And what do they want?" She looked up, eyes wet. "Judgment." Before Rylen could speak, another voice entered his mind. But it was not alien. It was Elira. Whispering. "Don't single quotes, to let them decide, make them choose." He froze. "Elira's still alive." "I can hear her." Annika's eyes narrowed. "She shouldn't be able to breach dimensional recursion. Not alone." "She's not alone," he whispered. "She's anchored." The world shook. A fracture split the air. Not ground-air. A horizontal scar of light, opening into a frozen moment in time. Through it, Rylen saw a Ruma chamber of mirrors and bone. Elira inside, suspended by neural threads, her body emaciated, her face calm. A countdown pulsed above her. 6 minutes. 5. He reached toward the fracture, but Annika stopped him. "If you go through, you may not come back the same." He smiled. Faintly. "I'm already not the same." He stepped through. The recursion chamber hit him like an avalanche of memory, not his, Elira's. Every moment she had ever doubted, every time she had stood against the Hive, every failure, every victory it cascaded through him in burning spirals. She turned to face him. Her eyes glowed. Not Hive, something new. You shouldn't be here, she said. You called me. No, they did. I'm the last test. He frowned. What test? If you save me, they'll see that you're still bound by human impulse, emotion, memory. And if I don't, you pass. But I die. He stepped forward. I'm not here to pass. The chamber convulsed. Outside, the watchers began to react. The sky above Earth ignited not with fire, but with visions. Cities built from thought. Civilizations rising and falling in seconds. Memories rewritten mid-sentence. Rylen reached Elira. She shook her head. Don't. You're the only thing that kept me human. She touched his face. You're not human anymore. I know, he said softly. But you are. He pulled her from the tether, and the chamber screamed. The recursion imploded. Outside, the sky turned black, and the watchers descended. Not in ships, in judgment. Annika screamed through her link. You failed the test. They're going to erase us. But Rylen didn't flinch. He held Elira's body close, looked to the sky, and spoke with a voice no longer his. You do not judge, USWER not. Your creation. We are your memory. The watchers stopped, stared, and for the first time, hesitated. Lira. Stirred in his arms. Alive. The world held its breath, and a single word echoed through the minds of every being on Earth: incomplete. Then the sky tore open and something stepped through, larger than any Hive construct, alien, but something worse, a forgotten version of humanity. One that had left this reality behind long ago, now returned, looking at Rylen, smiling, double quotes. Hello, brother, it said. The word echoed across Earth's scarred horizon like a verdict struck through the bones of history. Brother. Rylen Voss stared into the impossibly to the being that had stepped through the breach in the sky. It was human, almost his height, his shape, but smoother, sharper, perfected in ways that made Rylen's blood tremble. No pores, no breath, just gleaming pale skin wrapped around limitless awareness. The eyes were merest flat silver, not reflecting light but absorbing it. They didn't glow. They remembered every motion, every mistake, every extinction. Elira stood beside Rylen, still weak, her hand in his, her body trembling from the recursion detachment. She blinked up at the figure and whispered, "That's not Hive, that's us. Not an invader, not an alien, a fork. The evolved version of humanity that had once ascended beyond dimensional boundaries. The ones whispered of in early Harrow documents. Project Severance, a black-budget mission to explore theoretical post-biological migration, where consciousness would separate from entropy and physical space. The program was terminated after mass neurological failures. Everyone thought it had been a failure, but it hadn't failed. It had left Rylen backed away. You left us to die. The figure identical to him, yet impossibly older, smiled without warmth. We left to survive. You abandoned Earth. We ascended from it. The Hive was a side effect, a consequence of your primitive insistence on narrative causality. What? You needed stories, villains, gods, weapons, so the universe gave them to you. Rylen's voice cracked. Are you saying we created the hive? No, but your kind shaped it, fed it, meaning the hive was a mirror. It didn't kill because it hated. It integrated because you feared isolation. Behind the figure, the sky churned with other forms, hundreds, thousands of post-human echoes. Some were spherical data clouds, others shimmered like ideas half-formed, and they all looked at Rylen with something like curiosity or pity. Elira spoke. You watched this whole time we recorded. Why return now? The mirror Rylen answered. Because you broke the recursion wall. You chose to save instead of transcend. And now the cycle is open. Rylen clenched his fists. You said I was incomplete. You are still defined by choice, still bound by consequence. So what now? He asked. A ripple tore across the landscape, time shifting backward an inch, enough for birds to fly in reverse for half a second. The watchers were adjusting local physics. You are the anchor, his counterpart said. The convergence point of what was and what refused to be. You came to erase us. No, to offer integration, final unity. I won't give up what we've become. The mirror self raised a hand. We are not your enemy. We are your ending. Then he reached forward, and the world blinked. Suddenly, Rylen was standing alone in a city made of lighten impossible construct, where memory and geometry intertwined. He saw every version of himself, soldier, child, coward, savior, a kaleidoscope of identity, and then a choice, a terminal in front of him. One button, one sentence. Authorize global unification. He understood. If he pressed it, Earth would be subsumed, destroyed, but rewritten. No more war, no more hunger, no more death. All minds linked, all fears dissolved. No self, a perfect order. But no Elira, no love, no risk, no story. He turned away, and the city screamed. Back on Earth, the sky shattered. The post-humans descended, and suddenly, fire, old fire, human fire, above them. Ships appeared, scarred, rusted, real. The Resolute, the Kishari Wind, the last ark of Erebus. Hidden fleets from ancient resistance enclaves. Long believed, lost, now returning, broadcasting one message. Humanity is not done writing. Annika Ray appeared on the comms, her face bleeding from neural feedback, eyes wild. Don't submit. Not to the hive, not to our own ghosts. The fleets opened fire. Against what? Not ships. Concepts. Reality, fractured as idea clusters clashed. Thoughts, weaponized. Dreams armored, memory mines detonating across causality. The war wasn't just physical, it was semantic, each side rewriting meaning. Time, identity. Rylen fought in ways he didn't understand, shifting timelines, absorbing impact vectors from futures that no longer existed, bleeding hope into broken simulations. And Elira stood beside him, silent. She was fading. Too many resets, too many loops. He held her. I'm not losing you again. She touched his face. Then take me with you. I don't understand. She leaned forward, whispered a name, not hers, his real one, the name he hadn't heard since birth, hidden, buried, and with it, everything unlocked. He wasn't a soldier, he was the prototype, the first mind designed by Harrow to bridge between human and post-human cognition. The hive hadn't attacked Earth, it had come for him because he was the flaw, the unsealed door. He kissed her and then let go, not of her, of himself. The city of light shattered, the sky exploded, the fleets vanished, and everything became still. In the silence afterward, a boy stood alone, not Rylen, not Hive, not post-human, just someone new around him, a garden, a world restarting, no war, no gods, no weapons, just the stories, and the voice of Elira in the wind, not speaking, but remembered. Then a final line appeared. Across the sky, humanity was the weapon, but the story was the trigger. Fade to black.